In this episode of Revolution Report, we're going to be discussing the growing anti-intellectualism in the United States and how it feeds fascism.
Before we get started, we wanted to encourage new listeners to check out our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We've covered a variety of topics, and community care is always at the heart of what we do. So give them a listen if you want to learn while being empowered to take action to fight in your community.
Now, let's get to the episode.
Let's do it.
Before we dive into our discussion of anti-intellectualism and fascism, we wanted to direct anyone interested in taking action against this fascist government to our previous episodes: America the Fascist, Viva la Frog, amazing naming, Sarah.
No, thank you.
And No Trump, No KKK, No Fascist USA, which you can listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
We share some tips on how to protest safely and some ideas on how you can get involved. If protesting on the street isn't for you, make sure you check those episodes out. If you have heard them already, do it again. Now, let's get into it.
Let's do it. There's been a growing trend of anti-intellectualism in American society over the past few years. We've seen an increase in hatred of education, disregard for facts and science, and an embrace of conspiracy theories. And this has all been encouraged, if not led, by the Trump administration and the people in power.
Absolutely. Anti-intellectualism suits their purposes. They want Americans to be less intelligent, to have less knowledge. The Trump administration is fascist, as we've repeatedly discussed, and fascist governments are anti-intellectual inherently. Critical thinking is incompatible with fascism.
And that's because disagreement must be suppressed under fascism. There's only one way to think. Intelligent debate and diversity in perspectives cannot exist in a fascist society because they challenge the dominant viewpoint that the fascist government upholds.
You may have noticed the right targeting higher education institutions in the recent years, cutting federal funding for universities and attacking professors or programs that discuss ideas that they don't agree with, or targeting college students for expressing views they don't like. Don't get us wrong, they've been attacking education at all levels, but they have paid particular attention to universities and colleges.
There has also been a growing anti-college sentiment that the right has fostered. Along with dismissing attending college overall, many right-wing politicians have outright attacked higher education. In fact, Vice President J.D. Vance has called higher education a hostile institution. May we remind you that this man went to Yale.
He conveniently forgot.
Yes, because it doesn't fit his narrative.
Correct. It's no coincidence that the right is attacking higher education. For one, they want to govern a less educated populace. Higher education exposes people to new perspectives and people. It encourages critical thinking and intelligent debate. All things fascism absolutely hates.
Yeah. Fascism relies on an us versus them mentality, an othering of people who don't fit the mold of what the fascist society deems is appropriate. Encountering new people and perspectives challenge that kind of thinking, and challenge the very foundation of a fascist government.
Yeah, furthermore, the less educated someone is, the easier it is to make them believe what you want and have them fall for propaganda. I mean, Trump himself has said, quote, "I love the poorly educated." That is a direct quote from him, and he wasn't lying.
He was not. Colleges and universities are also places where protest and push for social change occur. Many anti-war protests of the 60s took place on college campuses, and in recent years, pro-Palestine protests took place on campuses across the country. And since campuses are a popular place for protest, fascism wants colleges to either fall in line or stop operating altogether. The only education acceptable under fascism is indoctrination and propaganda.
The Trump administration targeting campuses is only one example of anti-intellectualism thriving. Another example is the way we're conditioned to be desensitized to statistics. Because we're talking about anti intellectualism in this episode, let's look at the statistics of adult literacy rates in the United States.
According to the National Center for Education Statistics, as of 2023, 54% of American adults read below a sixth grade level. That's over 130 million people, the majority of the country, who are reading below a sixth grade level.
And 28% of American adults read at a third grade level. Wow. Compared to 2017, when 19% of American adults read at a third grade level. I mean, clearly, there's a growing literacy crisis in this country.
And now, with the way we've been conditioned to think about statistics, there's often a disconnect between the numbers of the stats and the people those numbers represent in our minds. When we hear that 28% of American adults read at a third grade level, we don't often translate that to the very real people in our society who have that level of reading comprehension. And to be clear, that's over 74 million people.
That's a huge, huge number. And with the rise of anti intellectualism and a lack of critical thinking, that disconnect between statistics and the people they represent only becomes stronger. You're not encouraged to make the connection between real people and numbers, which can lead to a lack of empathy when learning about certain topics.
And that lack of empathy helps fascism. A lack of empathy, combined with a lack of critical thinking, can lead to a complacent population that is more willing to overlook or accept harm done to others by their government. And that lack of resistance is what fascism thrives on. It doesn't want you to care about other people or use your voice. It wants you to accept things as they are, without complaint.
Something we also wanted to touch on in this episode is how anti intellectualism not only feeds fascism, but upholds the oppressive capitalist system and contributes to the wealth disparity, which in turn feeds fascism because fascism thrives on hierarchy.
That's not to say that all fascist governments are capitalist, because they aren't.
No.
But rather, because fascism and hierarchy go hand in hand, a hierarchical system like capitalism, with growing class distinctions, is a natural fit with a fascist government.
So, how does anti intellectualism uphold capitalism? Well, as we discussed, anti intellectualism includes anti higher education attitudes. With those anti higher education attitudes come less people getting a college education, and fewer people getting college degrees means less economic mobility.
The most common way economic mobility, or moving up an economic class, occurs is through education. Undergraduate and graduate degrees enable people to get higher paying jobs than they would qualify for without those degrees, which allows them to potentially rise in economic status. Of course, in this economy, jobs aren't guaranteed even if you have a degree.
As we've seen,
Absolutely. But it's undeniable that having a degree does make a difference in the job market.
more college degrees means more economic mobility for the population, which is a good thing if you're a person with a heart. But to the people who profit and benefit from class disparity, economic mobility is a bad thing because it means that there are less people to exploit and profit from. So, anti intellectualism and the resulting decrease in class mobility directly feed capitalist structures, which inherently also supports fascism.
You're so correct.
Thank you, Diva.
And it's not like it's easy for everyone to attend college. For some people, college can be prohibitively expensive, which is by design. Having a barrier to entry to higher education limits the number of people who have access to it, making higher education and the potential economic mobility a privilege. And the most exclusive, desirable, advantageous schools with the most connections to high-paid industries, like Harvard and Yale, etc., cost the most.
By making the supposed best educations in the country cost the price of multiple cars or down payments on a house just for a single year, the elite are able to reinforce and maintain the existing class system and limit opportunities for class mobility for others. Because even if you have a college degree, some people are stuck with paying off their debt for years and years and years, potentially the rest of their lives. And that also limits class mobility.
Unfortunately, the people in power aren't interested in equality or an educated population, and they've managed to convince the public to go against their own best interests. If they truly cared about Americans being educated, higher education would be more accessible than it is.
Speak on it.
We'd have universities that are free to attend instead of costing thousands of dollars per semester. But it benefits the already rich and powerful to keep things the way they are, so things won't change unless we make change happen ourselves. And don't forget that pushing for easier access to education for all also fights fascism.
Along those lines, we wanted to promise our listeners that we will never put our content behind a paywall. And that is a promise. We believe that information should be free and easy to access. So we will never make anyone pay to listen for our information and resources, ever. It would go against literally everything we believe in, and how we started this media company is by those beliefs.
Yeah, and we will never abandon
The
them.
basis foundation.
Mm-hmm. And we also believe deeply in community care and think that fighting fascism and anti-intellectualism is community care. And we want to empower you to care for your communities. So we're going to share some resources and ways you can take action. We'll have everything we mentioned linked on our website, handballcourtradio.com.
First, libraries. They've got more than books. They have countless free resources, including language learning and Wi-Fi. And libraries are free. They're a truly fantastic resource and a great way for you to continue learning and encourage the people around you as well to fight anti-intellectualism. We'll include a link to a public library locator on our website. And I would like to point out, Miss Analisa Venolia just got her renewed library card, so...
Oh my God, and when I say that I've been checking out at least 5 books a month minimum, I have, and it's been such a joy. So, woo-woo! Anyway, next, literacy centers are also a great resource to support or use, not only for children, but adults as well. Building literacy helps develop critical thinking skills, which, as we've discussed, are deeply important. We'll post a link on our website for California literacy centers, but we encourage you to seek one out in your community and see how you can support them.
And finally, in order to fight fascism, we've got to know what we're up against. We'll share Umberto Eco's essay, Your Fascism Again, and for those who are interested in reading about fascism as it relates to the present day, while also learning about historical examples, check out the book How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley. It's informative and well-researched. Consider checking it out from a library if you're interested.
Now, as we fight fascism and anti-intellectualism, it's important to remember that we should never stop learning. So, let's fight back and learn together.
To learning!
Woo! And that's about it for this episode. We hope it was informative.
As always, you can check out our website, handballcourtradio.com. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Handball Court Radio. And you can also follow me there at Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm there as Not Like Mona Lisa. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love it if you like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss our content. And don't forget to rate, review, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
And with that, I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm Analisa Venolia.
And this has been Revolution Report.